Good morning, guys. How are you? Can you guys hear me? My name is Mukanda, and I'll be the moderator for today. I have left some house rules on the chat just for everyone. And first of all, thank you so much for everyone who's joined today. We're going to discuss the effect, if any, that COVID has had on men. Emphasis on if any. Morning, how are you?
Good morning, Mukanda. We can hear you. I'm surprised that you said if any. Is there any doubt that there are some effects?
Amani, I think you're not giving men enough credit for being resilient and impossible to pitch down, and look fabulous while at it.
Yeah, the fact that we're already talking about being resilient means there's something to be resilient against. For example, Dana said drinking souffle. You can see.
And yeah, I thought that's the theme. That's the song for which that's a drink for which there's a theme song called Rumbatani.
Mnaniingilia bure.
Is this? No. In fact, I don't think it's if any. I think it's not some. I think it is a lot of effects. I think we have to having to gather our effects together.
It's true.
Categorize them and make them sit in groups.
Yeah. Wait.
You've had your moment. Can I go on?
Yes, you may.
So I wanted, first of all, I wanted this to be present, this platform to be present, because I am huge on men and just what men go through and to understand. Because on my side, I feel like there's no emphasis on the boy child, there's no emphasis on men. Men are never heard, men are never given the opportunity to speak. So I decided, you know what, since I have a platform, I might as well bring a couple of guys just to understand. How has COVID treated you guys? I know PS5. This PS5 is coming out. You all are just enjoying yourselves, lying on the sofas as we take care of you. Is that the case? We'll find out. So I'd like to introduce the panelists. I'll start with Amani Maranga. If you don't know Amani, you're doing something wrong. He is a moderator, he's a communicator, and most importantly, he's the face behind Living Truthfully podcast. Amani, karibu sana.
Asante sana. That's how, Mushiri, that's how to introduce me. Please take notes.
One second. How do you spell truthfully?
You start with foolish, then you remove the SH.
Okay, next we have Dan said that Dan is an award-winning artist known for his song Electricity. Dan, I actually knew you. That's the first song I knew yours, Electricity.
Oh my gosh.
Dan, karibu sana.
That's good, asante. I don't have many things to say like Amani. I'm humble African.
Why, you're not a man?
No, sina maneno mengi.
That's what they all say. Next, we have Mushiri Nyaga. Mushiri is the executive director of ILDRI. I think he's the only serious person we have in the house today. Mushiri, karibu.
As you can see from my Peperuka mark, mine is just to say something small.
Yes, it's just to say something small. Thank you guys so much for agreeing to be here today. I know it was on short notice. I know you guys are busy right now, but asanteni sana for just being here. So my first question, so the session will be divided into three. The first will discuss income. The second will discuss mental health, and the third will discuss the lesson learned and also in relation to family during this moment. So I'll just dive right into it. Dan, your income streams, you being an artist, how has this affected you and your income streams?
No, sisi tumekufa. If there's no need to beat about the bush. Entertainment is dead.
You're normal.
Sisi tumekufa. We are looking at diversification of what we do, because you see, those of us who are, for instance, live musicians, the only way for us to make any money is for people to gather. And at this point, it's not safe for them to gather. And so I don't see any gatherings happening before January. So saizi tunaangalia maybe ukulima as an option, or some, a different income stream, because performance is not there. And unfortunately, with the context of our industry in Kenya and I guess Africa in general, there's no real other income stream that you can rely on. Like, people don't buy albums, especially Wakristo, they don't buy it. And then streaming platforms are not very viable for the musician. They're viable for the streaming platform themselves and not necessarily viable for the musician. And then live concerts online, like I'm doing with Studio Tisa, are great, but this market is also not used to pay-per-view. So we're not really able to have a direct monetization model. So kwa ufupi, sisi tumekwisha kabisa, na we are looking at new ways to still be viable in the city.
Okay, wow. Mzazi aliposema tufanye engineering kumbe ya kudanganya. Alikuwa amefosi. Alikuwa amefosi.
Yeah, engineering mimi nilifanya na
Okay.
tuko hapa kwa ground na watu wa engineering. Tuko pamoja tu. Tukaenda la building site.
Ground is same. Okay. Mushiri, coming from more a different more profession, how has the pandemic affected your people? Also being an executive director, what has been the impact on your side?
First of all, the titles are just titles. Me, I'm a KYM. I work for the people. And I think that's for me a very important aspect to look at this one, because for any entrepreneur, whether in the non-profit or the for-profit sector, the pandemic has hit many businesses at multiple levels. The organization is hit. So in terms of the person now charged with leading efforts, you're hit in two places at the same time, because it's a double whammy, maybe even triple. Yeah. But the first is there's an impact on income. Yeah, we're a non-profit organization. A lot of non-profits that are not primary health centric, not looking at public health, specifically. I've seen quite a number begin to retrofit public health issues, COVID, into their existing programming. And for some it's comical, for some they're fortunate enough to be in adjacent areas, so they're able to do something. For us, organization, Local Development Research Institute is primarily focused on public policy and evidence-based decision-making, evidence-informed decision-making. So that puts us in a place where we don't have to retrofit anything. Our work is already pandemic relevant. But the challenge is you have a lot of the funders who had put money in aspects of public sector management or health sector strengthening, that moved money directly to COVID response activities, PPEs, pandemic COVID education, things like that. So if you are talking to a funder and you are on the same page, everything was going fine, suddenly they tell you, we're moving our funding away for the next 1 year. All our money is going to COVID response. And now you find yourself in a difficult position. So even when I see some of the organizations that I would call a comical retrofitting, I can only laugh because it's so it's familiar. I empathize. I can see how that could easily be me. And maybe there are some people who look at our work and think we're doing the same thing. But the second area where you get hit, other than work, is at home, because your revenues are gone. You don't have to deal with landlords. Mama Mboga wants to know why the avocado ya juzi is VP. What's going on? You have, of course, school fees. That was becoming an issue. So even when you see parents from high cost schools going to court, it's because it's a painful thing. And then you have, the challenge of explaining a drastic, sudden change in lifestyle to your children. Because they were used to certain activities, they're used to certain things, and now.
Mushiri, you're frozen.
Am I still frozen? Am I back? I can see Amani nodding his head. All right, cool. Okay, now Asha is frozen.
Okay, so Mushiri is frozen. I don't know why. I'll pose the same question to Amani. Amani, how has the pandemic affected everything on your part, mostly professionally?
I'll let Mushiri finish because he's actually still on our end. We can see him clearly. I think you're the one who's frozen, Mukanda. But Mushiri, just finish your thought and then I'll pick up from there.
So talking about the explaining the things, the sudden change in lifestyle to your children, because I think that's for me the new face of frugality. There's a point at which we were being, at a certain age. I have 5 children to think about, right? 5.
Oh, can you guys hear me?
I call them the wrong names, but we not at that. We had to be frugal. Now we have to be frugal in a different way. So that's basically what where I was going with that thought.
Asha, we can hear you, but your video is frozen. However, we can hear you. Mushiri, thanks for that. I think I've just thought, did you know that the word frugality had ugali in it, right in the middle of frugality?
That's my favorite jam, man. This is.
So when you say frugality, for me, it just made sense, as a plug-in for your maize farmers. But I'm with Dan here. I make money when events happen. As a speaker, I make money when events happen. As an MC for events, I make money when events happen. And so for me, COVID did take away my entire income pipeline, at least what had been planned from the month of March, for the next coming months. And so I feel him when he says that the entire income stream, from that, at least that has been my most regular income stream that went. However, I have found, and it's true that for many people, income has gone. It's true that for many people, jobs have been slashed. It's true that salaries have been slashed. I spoke to a friend yesterday who works for a hotel, and they haven't been fired yet, but the hotels haven't been open since COVID started. And they work for a big chain. So they are on a percentage of their salary. They can't do sales. This is a salesperson for a big hotel. They can't do sales. So they're just they're living on a percentage of their salary. So I think a lot of people have been affected, and it's caused high distress for people. It's caused a lot of uncertainty, causes anxiety. And so there's a lot of anxiety that is building up slowly because, you start with thinking this is a temporary thing, we'll solve it in a month or two. Maybe I can stretch my dollars a little bit, I can save, and then, you realize that some of your costs are not going to go down, and you cannot save as much as you thought you could. Obviously, there's some costs that have gone down. People are not spending money on bus fare as much anymore. But then you find that if you have a family, your food budget has gone higher because people are staying longer at home, so they're eating more. Like Dan, even though you'll never see where it goes, it just keeps it just keeps piling up. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that there's a lot of industries that have been affected and a lot of jobs. And I think it's particularly, I think both men and women are, anxious. But I think because traditionally the burden of provision is on the man, then there's a certain level of distress that increases for the guy, and especially for a family man, because you feel the need to figure out or to find solutions for your people. And so you have the burden of trying to figure out, how do I feed my wife? How do I feed my children? Even if your wife is working, but the burden is heavier on you. And so, on your mind at least. So I think it's important to acknowledge that a lot of people are struggling and are trying to figure out how to either survive or pivot their businesses and their industries and their jobs to be able to be relevant in what is now a post-COVID era.
And maybe, Amani, if I can just build on just one thought there, which I think is really important and captures, at least where my headspace has been. See, when I talk about landlords and the double whammy, is that you're getting hit at home and at work. But when you think about landlords, for me, I'm not just thinking about the landlord for the organization's office and the landlord for my home. I'm also thinking about the landlords of my employees. And the need to find solutions for your people is something that's a burden. That's a real burden for men like us, because you're trying to figure out how to keep people gainfully employed. You're trying to protect the jobs. You're trying to keep the money coming in, and at the same time, you have to worry about your own income as well. So you have 2 landlords, 3 landlords, 4 landlords. Your landlords are as many as you have people working for you. And I think that burden is a real component of the aggregate burden, that you have to carry, at least in your mind, at the very least.
And Moshiri, I also feel for the landlords, to be honest. You could be a landlord because you took a loan to pay a mortgage. You bought an apartment. You paid, you're paying a mortgage, so you have this debt that and often rental incomes are not as they never really pay fully for a mortgage debt, and so you probably are expecting that rental income and then topping it up with a part of your other income from your salary or whatever to pay for this investment that you bought, or this set of investments that you have built. And then now this thing hits and your tenants are not able to pay, and so you have this mortgage that you're paying with the bank. Some landlords are probably in a bigger hole than their tenants because of the amount of debt that they have.
Very well
one
put.
of the things that in this conversation of landlords and is really that sometimes the position as a man is you're the cash flow manager. That's the thing that you do. You're the guy handling the ins and the outs. And you're not really, it's not asset based. So you could be high in assets, such as Maranga is explaining. You own this house, but you're low in liquidity. You actually don't have any cash. And so now you get into the frugality that Mushiri was talking about, that now, even though it looks like you have it together, you are not able to actually manage the day-to-day business of handling yourself and handling this patriarchal system, and then the people that rely on you to manage. And so it can be quite a big burden, as you've said, Mushiri, that occurs not only physically and financially in your pocket, but emotionally.
That is just well said, Dan. And that actually going to my next question was, what burden has this had? We know it has had a burden on you guys financially, you guys, because like 75% of homes in Kenya are owned by breadwinners, and the breadwinners are male. But I mean, are owned by male breadwinners. But what effect has that had on your mental health? What stress has that had on your mental health? Because we're now going into the fourth or the fifth month, and we're still uncertain, because we keep thinking that on the next press release, the lockdown will be lifted, but the days were 21. Now we are having 30 days. What stress and burden, and where is your mental health right now during this period? Being the financial cow, as you mentioned, I can just get back to you, Dan.
Well, I mean, there are some things that are very difficult to discuss just because of the cultures that we come from. So you can't really, there's no space really to say. Of course, you feel stress, right? That's the first thing. You also feel emotionally a little bit. Your temper is, your fuse is shorter. You are taking less. You're more impatient with things. You're because you're so focused on trying to solve a big problem that sometimes some of the other little problems just annoy you because they're there. But we also have to remember that sometimes in the culture that we are in, and this patriarchal system, there's really not a lot of room to discuss it. You can't really say, yes, niko na stress, ambua bwana enda nje ukimbie alafu rudi.
Kwa mwanamume.
Because that's the way we've dealt with it. So I know that there are challenging things for people to go through, but I am personally a proponent of loud reggae music in the shower. Loud.
Is that helping?
Oh, I mean, everybody needs their own release. So whatever works for you, if you can find situations to decompress, places that you can decompress, step back, take a look at things, re-strategize, then you go for them. Whatever those situations are, hopefully they are legal and they are not going to hurt anybody else.
Okay. Amani, you're an advocate of mental health. As for my question, where are you? Matters mental health. How are you feeling during this period? We know the effect has had on your pocket, but on your mental health. And are you able to express it, or are you doing the reggae way like Dan?
First, I think reggae is a very healthy expression of anything. Reggae music was made for sufferers. It was reggae music is about expression of pain. For the most part. So I'm with Dan. I encourage people to listen to reggae. You might find someone has put in words what you're feeling. Personally, I think I've gone through several phases of mental. I don't know what the word is, but my mind has gone through several phases. So the first, I was literally in a client's office discussing work for the next 2 months the day the first COVID case was announced. And I was literally in a boardroom, just working out numbers and details for some work. And so when that when the first case of COVID was announced, I was disappointed because I knew for sure all that work was going to go, and true to fact, the next week I got regret letters. We have to wait and see. We cannot release any funds or any budgets for this. So I was very disappointed, and I went through a certain phase of anxiety and uncertainty. Then I think because I've been in hard spots before, I quickly pivoted to, okay, there's nothing I can do about this, so chill. So I chilled. I watched TV. I watched everything on Netflix, on Prime Video, I have intimate knowledge of my Fire Stick, and I just chilled. I decided to take it easy. Then I went through a phase of, okay, I'm done chilling. I can't sit anymore. I need to find something to do. So I started reading a bit to figure out whether my brain still works. There's always doubt on that one. And then I went, and then I started just putting down stuff that I thought could be done during this season. And thankfully, as I started thinking about what could be done, how I need to pivot my business, how I need to pivot some of the things that I'm doing, I found myself getting back into the groove of work. I also realized I needed to keep myself relevant online. So I started, just putting out more content, getting involved in the conversations that people are having, because, relevance for me is an important thing. I've seen Ramah said food too is also a stress healer. Yes, Ramah, I agree. I started cooking more. So this is why you can only see from here up. I will not show you what the rest of this body looks like, because I've been cooking a lot. I've been cooking, I've been baking, I've been experimenting on dishes. And so I started finding things to keep myself busy. So now I feel like I'm in a good space. I mean, there's still some uncertainty, there's still some anxiety, but I do have things going on for me. I do have work, I'm busy. My days are fuller now than, they have been in a while.
They were.
Yeah. I'm able to see potential for income in certain places. I was going to tell Dan, Dan, you're right. We're not in a culture. I'm trying to figure out how I can put an event for men and men pay for it, but it won't work that way. I mean, I won't make money from doing that. But I think all the brands that we work with are also looking for solutions on how to engage with audiences online. And so I'm spending my time trying to think, how do I create properties online that I can have brands attach themselves to, and so that we start to create new value using our audiences and the followers that we have, and new value using our talents and our skills for this brands, and hopefully be able to get some sponsorship in that way. So I feel I'm in a good space. My mind is busy, so that's good for me.
Okay, thank you so much. Mushiri, where is your mental health at the moment?
Mushiri's is a constant. But I'm happy to hear what he says.
I have a constant what?
You have a constant good brain working, and
Well, I like the Indian kid dancing. Whoever is sharing that is really trying to tap into my headspace right now. I have I think, yeah, I'm in a good place. I'm in a better place than I used to be. Something Amani, you said is very relevant for now. See, the fact that you've been here before, not in a pandemic, but you've been here when you're having to find new ways of being frugal, right? That has helped, because you go through that fast anxiety, and that anxiety, like you said earlier, is connected to uncertainty. And you just have this background thing, constantly there. You don't know what's tomorrow going to look like. Are you going to make your overheads? What does this look like for your people in the office? What does this look like for other people who are depending on you? You have a lot of
brother, can you ask you a question?
a background anxiety. I think
Do
maybe.
you know the way? My brother, do you know the way?
Well, Asha, I think you have a friend here who wants a question answered.
Yeah, that's what happens when links are shared. I'm so sorry about that.
No worries. So I think maybe I'm in a better place than I would have otherwise been. But there is still quite a bit of anxiety for me. I have some moments that are not pretty. And then also the fact that, the whole idea of transplanting your work life from the space where you're used to doing it to a domestic space, where you hadn't quite prepared that space for work. That also has its contribution to short fuses. Dan talked about that. That shortens your fuse pretty quickly. When you're trying to get a donor to understand why it is impossible to invest in governance issues. And that has implications on a lot of things. So for me, I think the biggest impact has been anxiety, but I'm in a good place. I'm in a way better place than if this had happened, 10 years ago. No, maybe more. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to take a few questions. The first question is, can men cry? Are you guys allowing yourself to cry, or is it still foreign, even though you're facing all this stress? The pandemic is very foreign, everything is wrong, but are you allowing yourself to be in the emotion and let it out? Amani?
You can cry outwardly and you can cry inwardly. Yeah?
Outwardly.
Like I'm crying now. Can you see? Can you tell? I don't think it's a simple answer. The question I would ask men is whether they're allowing themselves to feel what they're feeling, which is something I call emotional integrity. Being consistent and allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling. Yes, I am allowing myself to feel what I'm feeling, but my tears, it takes a long time for my tears to come out. That doesn't mean that I'm not feeling what I'm feeling. I have other ways of being able to express, if it's sadness or anger or fear, that are not necessarily crying. So I think the question is, are men allowing themselves to feel what they're feeling, and are they being able to express it? I don't think crying is a standard measure or a benchmark
of
expression of emotions.
Of feeling. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Another question. Now that you all are staying at home, those with partners, are you engaging in domestic work? Mnaosha vyombo, Mushiri?
Vyombo.
Yes.
Now, let me just, when you say vyombo, what do you mean? Anyway, it's vyombo, anyway, I don't know. For me, it's, yeah, I have, let me just say, I have areas that I have strengths, and washing dishes is one of them. I don't mind it. I find it very therapeutic. But those who happen to be in the area when I'm washing the dishes get very, very frustrated by the amount of time I take. My processes for hot water vis-a-vis rinsing water, it's a science for me, and that maybe has caused me to be banned from sinks from time to time. But yeah, I help out with the kids. Other than diaper changes and cooking, I cook. I've been known to bake a mean cookie from time to time. Okay, maybe one time, but it was a high protein cookie. It was a good one. But yeah, I have things that I can do around the house, which I definitely do, and there are some which there are some which shorten my fuse. Do not ask me to feed a child.
Oh, okay.
Fuses shall be blown. That's stressful. That's a stressful place to put me. But I help all where I can.
I don't wash dishes. I find this
I think
a selfish way to live. How will I create employment if I want to be philanthropic? By not washing dishes so that I can create employment.
I propose that you direct your philanthropy also to my sink. As part of your COVID response, Amani.
As part of his COVID response, he can just do that. It's so simple. Dan, Dan, are you helping out in any way?
First of all, I think it's a really bad assumption that's been made that because we are working at an office, you don't participate at home. It's really bad. And then secondly, because you're working at home does not mean you have more time. So there's no need to reorganize anything. If this thing was the way it was working in one way before, then it should just continue working now. It's not that now I'm at home, now I go cut the grass. Who has been cutting the grass before? Because me, I'm still busy. I still have to do things. I mean, if I was cutting the grass before, then I'll cut the grass. If I wasn't cutting the grass, then I don't know why now all of a sudden I must get a new task to do. In any case, for me, when I look at all these domestic things, it's labor. It's still labor. So it's the same amount of labor as you do in your office. It's still labor. The whole family unit requires it. It's necessary. So it should not necessarily be, that's why I'm like, why is there a new discussion? See, these things needed to be done anyways. So they just need to get done.
So you don't need, but right now, right now you guys are at home more like than you guys were, let's say 5 months ago.
Yeah, but it's not that we're at home.
I think that's the
sitting
difference.
Nothing. It's not exactly that we're at home to mekande. No, like Amani so eloquently put it, we're trying to find the revenue stream that will work now. So we're still working. So it's not that, oh, he's over there, get him to go cut the grass. That's not really going to help my day the way it's going. Because I'm not over there waiting for you to give me a task. I have, I'm trying
to have your own.
Yeah, and so I'm against this thing of sasa umekuja hapa, let's make a new rota. Hapana, how things were working before is how things should continue to work.
Okay. Amani, you had something to say?
Yeah, I agree largely with Dan, with a caveat though. And my caveat is, I think there are certain opportunities that we find ourselves able to take advantage of just because of the proximity to the family. So, for example, I'd advocate for people with children to, just because the children are at home and you're at home, then you have the opportunity to spend more intentional time with the children. Children are homeschooling, for example, and I've found that I'm not as intelligent as I've purported to be.
Wewe ndio wale wa mimi nilipokuwa shule nilikuwa number 1. Now your number 1 has been put to test.
Yeah, it's number 1 under Moi government. So you need to understand that this education has changed completely. But I think the involvement, and especially of fathers, in the lives of their children at this point, and being able to spend a bit more time, a bit more intentional time, is very healthy for these children. It's therapeutic for dads. I think we create new memories for these children. We create opportunities for bonding. And so I do think there's some spaces where, because of the proximity at home, then we can take advantage of. But I do largely agree with Dan when he says that I'm not home idle. Okay. okay, I was at some point, but now I'm not. So, let me work on what my strengths are. For example, my strength right now as I've grown in my career is in giving direction. So it's better for me to be able to give strategic direction to the family and to the tasks as opposed to actually doing them. I'm joking, I'm kidding. But you get my point.
Yeah, I get your point. And now I have another question that's stemming up from the point you mentioned. You have your own tasks. You're not just here, you're not chilling, you have your own work, there's something you're doing. But as someone, let's say if as someone with a partner, I'm expecting, okay, now wash up vyombo, you make up the whole day. How is that? How are you now relating with the significant others during this period? Because yes, you have your own stuff, but I expect now that you're here, your 8 to 5 is now in the house, you should do a few things. What is the relation with the partners at the moment, Amani?
I am currently single and divorced, and so I don't have that problem.
Like you?
However, if I was to give any advice, I'd say partners need to consult on their expectations. But I will let those who are better men than I, like Dan, go ahead and answer this question.
First of all, I'm not a better man than anybody, but here's the thing that I'll say. The assumption is wrong because all labor is labor. The person who was working in the office was doing labor. The person who may have been staying at home was doing labor. So it's all labor. So if we turn the conversation around and say, "Haya, mimi nimekuja home, wewe sasa enda job," it would not be a fair thing to do to somebody because of the way that you've set up your home situation. So then the other way should also not be an option. Since umekuja hapa sasa wewe fanya hii, is not really the way. So I'm with I'm with Maranga that whatever you have domestic situation, you have negotiated, because all these things are negotiated. You've negotiated a domestic arrangement. This is how you do it. Just stick to that. If you enter a negotiation, so find a way to start the conversation. But I don't think people should assume, at least my view is that nobody should assume entitlement to another person's time in that very rigid way.
Okay. Mushiri, what's your take on this? How are you relating with the significant other?
Well, yeah. There's a negotiated settlement in place. Sounds like a Middle East peace accord. But yeah, there's something that Dan said earlier, which I think is important to keep in mind, that there's an extent to which there should be some business as usual, right? That you were already doing certain kinds of things before. And for me, I am a bit domestic in a way, so that kind of helps. That the fact that doesn't a huge amount to change as such from my perspective, right? Because her perspective might be a bit different. But yeah, so the thing is, it looks different from couple to couple, depending on what that negotiated settlement has looked like in the past. And for me, it meant making some changes, adjusting expectations, because we don't have house help. So, it is us, the whole house is us. So the fact that I am there a whole lot more, I did have to make an adjustment for the expectation that I'm around. So I might be able to help out a little bit more. So that was a somewhat negotiated new appendix addendum that had to be done.
It had to be done, and I think I think that is very important. And
I think one thing that is good to keep in mind, that you see, this whole working from home thing has really disrupted the idea of the 5-day working week and the 9 to 5.
Yeah,
we're now working all the time.
all the time.
You're having to make decisions about when to stop working and do something else. And one of the places you're having to make that negotiation is what that something else looks like. Because if you've stopped working and you're tired and you just want to get away from this thing, and taking a walk might seem insensitive to someone who's saying, aren't you going to help with the dishes? You know, how can you just decide that you're going out to look at the boys because now you can't hang out with them? You know, when the house is like this. So you kind of have to make that kind of negotiation while keeping in mind what the reality looks like for each of you. And I think that's something that's different from couple to couple.
Yeah, I think it's very important, as you've mentioned. It's important to during this period to take time and just reconsider and go back to the drawing board on a couple of stuff. I'll take another question from the chats. What are the 3 things women should know about their women in this time? What are the 3 things that women should know about their men during this time? I will start with Amani. What are the 3 things that women should know about their men this time?
I feel inadequately prepared for this question because of my current experience. But it's true. You know, I currently don't have an everyday, you know, that family setting that where women are in my space every day. So I'm actually not. I'll answer this from a thought perspective as opposed to an experience perspective. One, I want you to know that our anxiety is real. That there's real anxiety, you know, that we are worried, we are concerned. And so even though we don't look like it, there is a weight that we are carrying. And there's need for compassion, you know, for that weight. Number 2, the truth is men need men in their lives. Men need men in their lives. They need brothers. They need a sense of brotherhood. And I think that's one of the things that has happened during this isolation period, that we have been taken away from this space where we can let loose as men by ourselves. And I think I want our women to know that that you know that there's a gap, there's a relational gap we have that cannot be filled by the woman, you know, and that's just the truth. It's she's there, she's probably doing her best, but that relational gap cannot be filled by a woman. And so I need to talk to my boys. I need to figure out how to hang with my guys, talk on phone with them, or do a Zoom call, or if in a safe environment, have 2 or 3 of them come over, or I go and visit 1 or 2 of them, because the man cave is still necessary. And now the space for that man cave has been shrunk even further during this isolation period. And lastly, I think I want them to know, I mean, I'd like women to know that the women in our lives, to know that we still have their best interests at heart. We still have their best interest at heart. And why I'm saying this is important, because I feel like often, and this is going to be a sweeping statement, so please excuse it because it's a generalization. I'm not saying this is what happens to everyone, but often women expect men to express themselves the way they do. And case in point, just the same way you asked about crying. Women expect that we express ourselves in the same manner that they do, but we don't. And just because we don't express ourselves the way they expect us to, doesn't mean that we don't care about them. So I want them to know that if you're in our lives and you're here, we care about you. And even if we don't show it the way you expect it, if we say it, we mean it. Those are the 3 things.
Okay, thank you. So you need your boys. That's my take home. You need your boys. Okay, Amani, I see you. Mushiri, what are the 3 things you'd like the woman or women in your life to know in this time?
Well, Amani has kind of said them, you know, so I'll just, mine will just be to say something small. So sorry, Peperuka, this is not a plug for them, but in case they see this, you know, I really like the new t-shirts, just putting it out there. For me, I think the 3 things are very related. One is you need to understand that men have a coping mechanism. Your man has a coping mechanism for stress and anxiety. And if it's a healthy coping mechanism, you need to make room for it. don't shut him out. If your man has been, part of his way of coping with stresses and anxiety is to sit down with his PS5 for an hour, this is COVID. Allow him to do that for 2. Okay. But make room for the coping mechanism, because those coping mechanisms are, in some instances, what is keeping him alive. Right? If the coping mechanism is unhealthy, then that's the basis for a very explicit and deliberate conversation. So I know friends who are drinking too much now, because in the house with the cabinet within easy reach, and that is and then now because of frugality, people are dialing down from single malts to multi malts. I don't know what you do. Al might know what those ones are called because he didn't touch them. But those coping mechanisms are an area that you really need to watch out for, and one that you need to make room for. The second is listen to the fears. If whatever fears, and I think this is both for men and women, a foolish fear is a fear nonetheless. And it needs to be taken seriously, that if your man is afraid that he's going to be seen as a lesser man by his peers because he's having to cut back and make changes, that's a real fear. Don't ridicule your man's fears. They are real. Even though some of us are fearless, bonus fear sana, we still have to deal with these seriousnesses sometimes. And the third thing is the cave dynamics. Amani has alluded to the issue of the man's cave. We think about men withdrawing into a cave when they have a challenge to address, to think about something that they're mulling over and trying to find a solution for. What that looks like physically it looks like withdrawal, right? I'm stepping back. I need me space. I need me time. I need to figure something out. When I withdraw, it's not abandonment, right? Because if you see it as abandonment, then you will respond. You'll have an abandonment response. And the problem is most men don't know what that withdrawal looks like from the other side. So when you withdraw, when you respond with your own kind of withdrawal, it's not translated, it's not communicated the same way. So you need to find ways of supporting your man during that cave moment, because it actually might help shorten it. And it's very simple things. It's that basic acknowledgement that I can see you're struggling with a solution, with a problem, you're trying to find a solution for. Can I get you something? Would you like some wet fry? I'll bring that over. It's some of that kind of really practical stuff that says, I see you, I hear, I understand, I acknowledge where you are, and I am right here. I'm here to support you. And I think for me, those are the kind of the three things, and they're kind of intertwined and related in a way. But I think they're core. They're core to survival and coping.
So there's another question that I'm going to take, and has any one of you started therapy during this time? Has it gotten to the point whereby you need therapy? And therapy is very much, in my opinion, therapy is what speaks to you. For someone, it might be going to a therapist. For someone, it might just be talking to their mom or just opening up. So has anyone of you tried any healthy method of therapy? Dan?
First, I want to add one thing from the three things. I don't know.
The three things.
I just have the one. In the words of Michelle Obama, everyone has to be responsible for their own happiness. And we all need to take lead in making sure that we are happy and negotiating what we estimate to be our happiness. Giving the burden of happiness to the other person who you are in and giving 100% is not a fair thing to do. So, That's the only one thing I'll add to what Mushiri and Amani said. Therapy, everybody needs therapy, some kind of therapy. So, and everyone needs different kinds of therapy, in my opinion. For me, I run a lot. I consider it therapy. I play sports that now I can't play because of COVID-19. For me, I consider those things that I do outside of my regular schedule to be therapeutic. Formal therapy where you get a counselor, I personally have not done that, but I know people who have. And whatever works for you is something that I think you should always look for.
Okay.
I agree with Dan.
Yeah.
About therapy. I think there are different forms of therapy. Gramps Morgan and India Ree have a song called Therapy, which is also very, very therapeutic.
Yes.
But I actually do regularly get some form of, fairly, it's not formal therapy, but I have therapists that are friends. I have psychologists that are friends. And sometimes what I do is I invite them over for a meal and we'll sit down and talk, and I get to air and vent or be able to discuss some of the things that I'm going through. And sometimes they need therapy too. The therapist needs therapy. So I'm able to listen to them, and we get that sort of bonding that works for both of us. Allow me to share a resource that I have for anyone who feels they need to talk to someone. I have partnered with an online platform called Inuka Wellness. And they have an app that you can download on your Google Play Store. It's called the Inuka Wellness app. And using that app, you can actually get therapy from your phone. You can actually get to speak to a therapist on your phone. And if you use my code, I have a code which is LT2020. LT2020, L for living, T for truthfully, 2020. Then you can actually get up to 4 free sessions with a therapist, and just get to get yourself some help. So I'd encourage every man and every woman who's listening to this, who just needs a place where they can vent, maybe get some perspective, to go ahead and download the app, use my code LT2020, and you will get up to 4 free sessions of therapy.
Thank you so much, Amani, for that resource. I'm sure anyone and everyone will tap into that. So I'm going back to the program. Right now, we're just going to inquire on what creative ways have you guys sought to stay sane? What are you doing now just to stay sane? The pockets are bad, mental health shaky, but then now just to stay sane, just to see the day, the next day, the sunrise. What are you doing to stay sane? I'll start with Dan.
I'm against sanity as a standard for humans to achieve and keep consistently. I think you should it should ebb and flow. You should feel some situations where you're not sure. Oh, one sec. Hi. Okay, now I'm gonna leave you guys for a second. I'll be back.
All right, allow me to pick it up.
Yeah.
So first, I found that to allow myself to chill. See, part of the anxiety is because we always feel like we have to be doing something. We have to be busy. We have to be productive. We have to be constantly doing something. And unfortunately, some of the pressure from the conversations I've had with men is from women who are saying that this guy sitting here is doing nothing, but he probably needs to rest. And so the first thing I've done for myself is just rest. Just allow myself to rest, allow myself to chill, allow myself to unwind, to watch a movie, listen to music, read a fictional book, just do something that allows my mind to unwind. And I think that's very important, that men allow themselves to rest. We have too much pressure on our lifestyle, too much pressure on our lives, that we feel guilty resting. And I mean, I'm a huge advocate for just take some downtime and chill. The second thing I've done is obviously cook. I said for me, one of my creative channels is cooking. So I've been cooking up a storm during this season. I eat most of it because I live alone, but every so often I will have a guest or two that I will share this meal with, and so I cook, and that's one of the creative ways for me to release stress. Third, like I said earlier, I'm also working on new content, working on new podcasts. I'm working on new video content for my audiences, and so that keeps my mind busy and active. I'm involved in a couple of startup businesses, and so I've been able to allow myself time to just spend time thinking about the businesses that I'm involved in. And lastly, is actually to give. I found that when you're not so concerned, and you start becoming concerned about other people's welfare, that it helps you boost your own mental resilience. And so I found little pockets where I can be useful to other people, and sometimes not always the less fortunate, but sometimes it's a friend who needs an ear. Yesterday I was at a friend's house all afternoon, just letting him vent. And so while doing that for somebody else, you sort of are able to build your own resilience as well, mental resilience. So those are some of the things that I've been doing. I do agree with Dan that sanity is overrated. A little insanity is good for adding color to life. And so I don't feel like we need to have awareness when you're going down. If you're prone to depression, you need to have awareness that I am getting into a dark space. If you have a mental health challenge, especially one that you've had before, it's especially great to be aware. If you've never had one, when I did go through severe depression at some point, and I didn't recognize it for a while because I'd never seen it before. And so I want to be able to call out some things. If you find that you're more withdrawn than you usually are, then you probably need to investigate that. If you find that you don't want human contact at all, and this is not your norm, it's not because you're an introvert, and even if you're an introvert, you're doing it more than you usually do, this is something you want to investigate and a little bit. If you find yourself having dark thoughts, thinking about death, thinking about suicide, just spending more time on that than you usually would. Again, I think that's something to investigate. If you find that you're not working, you don't feel like working, and for a long time, you're not able to leave the bed, you're not able to open your curtains, you just want to stay in a dark space, again, you want to investigate that a bit more and maybe talk to someone about it. If you find that you're using your coping mechanisms more, if whatever it is, by the way, even if it looks like a healthy coping mechanism, but you're pushing yourself, you're using it more, it's taking over your life, then it's something you want to look at and investigate a bit more, and maybe talk to someone about it. Depression is easy to get into. Sometimes it's not easy to recognize, but you can get help, and you can start to work through some of those spaces.
I think that's really important to kind of keep front of mind. That
Thank you. Yeah, yes.
It's a real challenge for men, especially because we tend sometimes not to be as in touch with our feelings. So just creating a way to surveil yourself, so that you know whether you're investing more in your coping mechanisms, you're doing a whole lot more of that than you were before. I think it's really, those are some of the signals that you can use for determining what to do next. And I think for me, walking is a really important thing I do. I walk a lot, and it helps me, get out of my mind, get out of my own head sometimes. So that's one way I keep saying coping mechanism. Music, which goes with the walking many times, is really therapeutic for me. Comedy. So I watch a lot of old sitcoms, and I'm a big fan of stand-up. And for me, at some point, just to stop my brain from thinking about work and rent and school bazaar offices, stand-up comedy and comedy just generally can be extremely good for me. But also having a therapist on call, someone who I know I can call and just talk to and say, hey, today I've had a censored day, and be able to have that conversation without judgment, without worrying, without, thinking it might be recorded, just somebody who can open up and have a candid conversation with from time to time. That's whether it's a trained therapist or just a friend who's very good at listening, is very good. For me, I have a couple of those. One of them is actually a trained therapist. And in my view, one of the best things you can do for yourself is make that investment. So that Inuka Wellness app is a very good place to start if you don't know who to talk to, if you don't have a phone number for a psychologist that you can reach out to. Make the investment, get the app, put in Amani's code. When those 4 run out, just make that. It's the best thing you can do for your own life, because it affects your productivity. Your ability to relate with partners.
Okay.
I want to add something.
Okay,
just
so
because
it's okay, Amani.
Mushiria said about being able to have like a checklist, to be able to check yourself and see where you're at. So I want to share one that I use, and maybe it could be useful for someone. So I have an acronym, which is SASHET, 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 and then and the SASHET stands for 6 core emotions. So S for sad, A for angry, S for scared, H for happy, E for excited, and T for tender. And what I do is when I find myself, and especially for men, because men we don't always have a name for the emotion that we are feeling. We know we are feeling bad. That bad is not necessarily, you don't know whether it's you're scared, you're anxious, or you're angry, or you're sad. You're not sure which emotion that you're carrying at the time. And so I found this as a very useful acronym to help me just be able to place my emotions in their right compartments. And so what I do is I ask myself, is there anything that makes me feel sad today? And then I'm able to answer that. Is there anything that makes me feel angry? Then I'm able to answer that. Is there anything that makes me feel scared? Then I'm able to answer that. Is there anything that makes me feel happy? Then I answer that. Is there something I'm excited about? I answer that. And is there anyone or anything that I feel tenderness or compassion towards? And I answer that. And when I do that, I'm able to put this, all the emotions in their different compartments. And by doing that, I'm able to have a checklist on where I really sit. And if I find that I'm feeling heavy on one of these emotions, especially one of those that are sad, angry, or scared, then I know how to deal with it. I just wanted to share that too.
Thank you so much, Amani. So one hand is up, and I'm going to allow Philip to speak. His hand is up. Philip.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh yes. Now I just want to say thank you for organizing this. I I think I'd wanted to share at the stage where, you had asked the question of, considering and getting involved at home. And one of the things, and I agree with Dan and the other panelists had shared, is that, whatever goes on and being at home does not necessarily mean, roles change in the sense. But I think it's good you find ways in which you can work together to make the whatever activities that are at home, easier and, being able to, be, I would say, more tolerant. One of the things that I have found, especially now, is helping in the homeschooling for our children, at least helping with that one. And we happen to have a newborn, that we got earlier this year. And so you find that my father has been involved, but once in a while, you would be able to find in time to help. Another thing that also helps mentally and also in terms of exercise is also gardening. So we find that, there are certain ways in which, and I like Mushiri and Dan that they had said that, where you stay and even with your, in the family, you can be able to see the things that come up. How can you be able to work together on them to be able to, just go through this season successfully? And yeah, so that is what I'd wanted to contribute that. And then of course, the other emotion, taking note of positive and negative and neutral feelings. I think I had mentioned it, and Mushir Amani has also given that that kind of analogy, and that list that helps. So being able to note the feelings, positive, negative, neutral, and being able to deal with them. Then of course, one other thing that has helped is the circle of control. Then being able to see which are the things that you can be able to control at this point, and which are the things that, there is not much you can be able to do right now about. And then you build also boundaries of routine, having a mental diet and exercise are also things that I have found helpful. Thank you very much for the chance. I would give the opportunity for another person maybe to, but I really appreciate, I've enjoyed the session.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. You mentioned something, creating boundaries. I think that's very important for anyone. Women, we keep saying as women, you need to create boundaries, but then we forget that men also need boundaries. And as much as it's not something that is said, it needs to be said, because I think boundaries are a human thing. If you're a human being, you need a boundary. So right now, the next session, the discussion is, what do you think life will be post-pandemic? What do you think life will be post-pandemic? And what are the lessons you've learned, the lifetime lessons you've learned during this pandemic? What has the pandemic taught you that will never leave you? And also, what do you hope post-pandemic? Dan, are you back?
Okay, yeah, my boss needed to talk to me.
I understand. When the boss calls, you have to.
So, yeah. I guess for me, what this entire situation has taught me is we have to live for the moment. You know that Eminem song that is in 8 Mile?
Yeah.
Live yourself. It's really important that we live right now and that we experience all the things that we are in right now and be present. Be present in everything that's happening in our lives right now, because right now is all we have. And I mean, those are like the kind of words we write to songs that are going to go at the end of a movie, but they're really important words to live by, because this whole situation has just reinforced how fickle this existence we have is, and how little time you have to deal with something. So I would say again and again, be engaged, stay present, deal with what you've got right now, feel your feelings if you need to, And then most importantly, be very kind to yourself. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to not know what's going on. I think it's okay not to know what you're going to do tomorrow, because that's where you are right now. And then beyond that, I don't have much else to say. That I hope for the future things will change.
Okay. Mushiri, what lessons have you learned from the pandemic? What has the pandemic taught you?
I think there are, well, definitely the whole be here, be present is a really big thing for me. I think it's become a bigger thing now when I have found that I can't go see my folks, right? And it's like I need to be here, but I need to find new ways of being here that we're not necessarily involving travel. And I think that's something that I am struggling to find a rhythm for, and one I think that is going to be a big part of my post-pandemic life. The other thing is diversify. Definitely in terms of incomes and the things that we do to build resilience. Whatever we're taught about, or have 3 months operational money in cash, have X amount of money that you can easily liquidate. People are beginning to discover that you can't liquidate some things, even things that you thought you could liquidate 6 months in. When you have such anxiety as we have with a pandemic like COVID, there are people who wouldn't be willing to spend money on capital assets that you're trying to offload. So, we need to be more innovative about how we diversify. And then there are certain reprioritizations that have happened, both at work and at home, things that before you thought were way important, that have dropped down the rankings. Yeah, we're seeing that with office space, for instance. That I was worried at some point that we want to grow, want to recruit, we might outgrow our space within a year. Now that's not an issue anymore. It's good and reprioritized. I found out people can work from home.
From home, yeah.
Yeah, so it's I think for me, those dynamics that have been introduced by the pandemic have made it possible to reprioritize, to think innovatively, to diversify, and be more present. I think that bears repeating, because I think you can be present physically and be very absent. So that whole be in the moment philosophy is like an anthem to live by.
Okay.
Let me jump into that.
Someone, yeah.
As well, and say, I think one of the things that we have to realize is that this is a significant time. We count time, Anno Domini, and then there's before, then after the death of Christ, there's before Christ. I think we will count time, post-COVID, PC. And I think it's as significant a time as ever. Here are some things that I feel are important to think about during this period. One is compassion. I think it's very important to be compassionate towards people and towards ourselves during this period as a survival tactic. And I think going forward, we have seen a lot of human resilience. We've seen people being compassionate to others, and I'd encourage that we do that. We do that often. We make it a habit. We make it a way of living, that we are compassionate people. Number two is that we are adaptable. I think it's very important that people realize that we have seen the most rapid change, especially in the online space now, than we've ever seen before. We're the generation that first saw the mobile phone. We're the generation that first saw the internet. We're the generation that first saw Facebook and social media. We are that generation, and we've been able to adapt. a lot of these things have sort of grown slowly. However, in the last few months, we have seen an incredible spike in how we use the online space. And I think this is not going to slow down. And so we need to understand that our rate of adaptability needs to be much faster now than it ever has been before. That having said that, it means that we have to also figure out how to pivot our skills. And people need to stop thinking about careers as they have traditionally been thought about. We need to stop thinking about jobs as we have traditionally thought about jobs, because those things are going to change, and they're going to change faster than we can imagine. There's no career that is safe from technology today. Surgeries are being done, by robots, and so you need to understand that now we have to think about more human-centered skills, and then invest in those skills, invest in ourselves, and now start to figure out how do we make our skills useful for humanity and find a way to monetize that, as opposed to thinking this is my job, this is my career, and this is what then I have, sticking to an old here, I'm saying even a year ago, way of thinking. We have to be adaptable. I think when we do that, we'll allow ourselves to change. And the world is changing, so we must change. I mean, Dan has to figure out how to make his music available and how to make people pay. He has to figure out, as a live performing artist, what is a new face of that live performing artist. Asha, you're moderating a conversation on Zoom. I need to think about how do I turn my MC skills into Zoom MCing skills. There are things that I have to pivot. And so we need to be adaptable in this post-COVID world, because if we have to maintain social distancing for a long time, think about schools. We cannot have students crowded in a class ever again. Now, if that's true, it means that your children will be going to schools maybe 2 times a week, and the rest of the times they're learning from home. So this is not a temporary change. You might need to think about how do you create a learning space for them at home. There are people who are already on work rotations. They're not going to be in the office full time because you can't sit right next to your desk in the office like you used to. And so they will tell you, you come to the office 2 times a week, and then you work from home 3 days a week. You have to adapt to that. And so I think it's going to be a rapidly changing world. Even if some of those things now are relaxed a bit, there are some other things that will change, because technology is also catching up with things. And so, we have to figure out these things. I saw a question, someone asked what are single guys doing for sex during COVID.
Yeah, I wanted to inquire just after you. What, like, single? You mentioned you're very much single, very much. You can respond to that. What are you doing? Alafu kuna baridi.
You can't wear a condom for COVID.
That is very unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate that you can't wear a condom for COVID. So I'm now, considering transmutation. Look it up.
But Amani, I think I saw somewhere online some government has released guidelines. Guidelines for.
Please share those guidelines with our brother.
Pandemic copulation. I don't know what the guidelines look like. I have not seen them.
If you see them, Oshiri, please share them with a brother. It's a scary period, because this isolation is actually forcing us to stop having regular human connections, and it's not just about sex, but it's also about how you hang out with friends. It's about, where you get your mind challenged, and where you get to vent, and where you get to just, catch up on life. And, human connection is an important part of life, because it's actually the secret to long life. So I'm happy to be guided by those wiser than I.
Thank you so much, Amani, for that. I'm so glad that we are more or less coming to an end. Most questions have been responded to and have been responded to effectively, if I do so say myself. But there's one thing that is yet, okay, you guys have touched on it, but what your male circles, what are the conversations? What are the conversations among your male circles? You've spoken about yourselves, what you're feeling, income and whatnot, but then the convos around your boys, you guys can't go out to drink anymore. So what are the conversations you're having during this period? Of course, you guys talk about money, but then what is the tone? How are they feeling? You know, and also the fact that when you bring in the concept of homeschooling, many people didn't homeschool, but then now that is present. So what are the conversation about staying at home as a man among your male friends and homeschooling? Is it now Dan had to be called, or like what are the conversation around that? I'll start with Dan because your boss called.
Yeah, but I'm not at liberty to divulge what my boss told me.
No, you
Private conversation. With my boss. Professional standards must be applied.
professional standards must be applied.
Boss, father, privilege.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I don't know what conversations are. I'm not a person who kind of categorizes things in that way. I think people are all figuring out how to operate in this new world, as a Mani has so properly put it. There are things that are new, and people are trying to find ways to deal with them. And then, as Mushiri had also said, there's some reprioritization going on. Some things that were higher priority are now much lower priority. I know from friends of mine, this office thing is a big deal. People are closing their offices because it's no longer useful to keep one. The rents are high. Landlords are not willing to discuss. So you close your office and work from home. So things are going like that for many people, I know. And it's probably the way of the future. In terms of personal, like, kind of emotional, I don't think I've had many conversations to that, so I don't have much to report.
Okay, Mushiri.
I think in my circles, the spaces that I found myself, the conversations are more or less the same as they used to be, except now Premier League is not there. And what's that, the Spanish one? You can tell I'm not a soccer guy. The
La
Primera.
Liga.
Liga.
We have suffered bigly.
I was a Liverpool fan just because I took a team.
What's up?
Team. And because I know with Liverpool, I'll never walk alone.
Never.
Don't ask me the goalkeeper's name. But yeah, so other than maybe sports, certain kinds of sports, I know my golfing friends are still going out on the grid. That's kind of changed. That's probably the part that has changed. But the football, the soccer, now that it's about to come back, maybe that will factor in. But it's politics. The same politics conversations are now very heated. Impending cabinet reshuffles, etc. Conversations around business and this reality. What is having to change. Hey guys, I'm looking for someone who sells masks. Where can I get a cheaper office? Moving house, that kind of thing. So in a way, I think it feels the same for the most part. I don't see drastic new topics, that have become part of daily interactions.
Okay, Amani.
I agree with the gentlemen that have spoken, and those not so gentle. I have my conversations with my boys have they've evolved as well. Like I said, I think maybe all of us have gone through different cycles. So it started with anxiety, Then there was a lot of complaining about, pressure from home and being made to wash dishes and things like that. Then at some point there was real anxiety about, how to make rent, especially for those that are entrepreneurs and their pipelines were their income pipelines had been disrupted. I do remember a conversation I was having with one of my friends who was thinking about moving his entire family to their in-laws' house, and that because they couldn't see how to make rent. And so, that there was a lot of conversation around that and keeping the bills, and, schools were reopening, and, people were renegotiating school fees for those that are in private schools, and trying to figure out, what is a fair amount to pay, since the teachers are still teaching, but the kids are not going to school. My kids have been going to class every day from 8 to 3 on Zoom. So the school is working, and so the teachers need to be paid. And so we were talking about that and negotiating. But I feel like Moshiri has said now, conversations have sort of normalized. So there is some sort of analysis about what post-COVID looks like, how we get back to work, how we get, back to some sense of productivity. But I think conversations have generally normalized now. The initial anxiety and fear has dissipated.
Okay, thank you for that. We are winding down, and I'd like a last comment, more or less a parting shot from all of you before we call it a day. I think I'll start with Dan. Last comments before we wind up.
No, just be kind to yourself. That's all I'll say. Forgive yourself. Give yourself some grace. And just kind of give yourself the opportunity to grow. And that's the only thing really I can insist on.
Okay, thank you. Mushiri?
It sounds a bit sweeping, but it's probably the best way I can think about it right now, articulate it even. It's okay not to be okay, but it's important to find ways of becoming okay again. So that's maybe the first part. I can't find the right sentence. Amani is much smarter than me. He probably knows. It's like it's okay not to be okay with caveats.
Yeah.
but most importantly, you need to find ways of making your way back.
Yeah, thank you. Amani, we'll close with you.
Actually, Dan is the one who is more intelligent than I. Dan, aren't you a lawyer? He's the one who uses words like caveats and things like that. But I'll say a couple of things. One, I agree with Dan about being kind to yourself. Guys, we need to cut ourselves some slack and just allow ourselves to be. And so be kind to yourself. Number two, I'll say be kind to the people around you. Just show compassion to the people around you. I was reading a survey that was done by the Movember movement, and a lot of men said that they feel way more isolated than women, and just because more men are unlikely to ask for help, more men are unlikely to reach out to other men. They're unlikely to make that phone call to catch up with a guy and just say, hey, how you doing? And so, that I think it calls for a level of compassion to be able to do that. And I'd say check on the men in your life. Check on them. Call them, just check on them. Let them know that somebody cares. And lastly, I'd say adapt. Find a way to adapt. Find a way to pivot. Think. I wish I could show you guys my whiteboard. I'm looking at just my whiteboard that's across the room. And it just has stuff that I'm thinking about. I'm trying to do iterations of stuff every day just to try and figure out how to make things work. and don't wait for things to work out for you to respond. There is room for you to think about how to pivot and to adapt. I want to wish all the people that are listening to this, and the men out here, I want to wish them well and let them know that you can get through whatever it is you're going through. You're not alone, and if you need help, reach out and ask for it.
Thank you so much, guys, for coming. Thank you so much for coming. I know I pushed. Remember, I pushed Dan, and I pushed, and I pushed, and I pushed, and I'm so sorry for that. But I really needed this conversation to be had. As I mentioned earlier, I'm so huge on men. I just need, I know there's something I need to understand that I still not understood. I don't know why the feminist movement right now is not a feminist movement, but then it's now touching on men and fighting men. Those are some of the things that I just need to understand. That's why I really wanted this conversation to be had. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for the questions. The conversation was great. So many comments on Slido and also on the chat. Thank you so much. Have a good one, guys. Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate. Thanks, Philip, for your comments, and thank you for your thoughts. I appreciate
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.